Hey everyone, it's been a while and a lot, and I mean a lot has happened. I celebrated my 40th birthday, and Kelly and I took a very nice birthday trip out to Chula Vista, California, very close to the San Diego area, along with our friends Jen and her fiance Sean. Had a great time at this very nice Airbnb that we stayed at. We even took Pickles with us. He had a ball there. He really enjoyed the backyard area this place had. It was covered with AstroTurf, so familiar territory for what he's used to here at our own home here in Las Vegas. While there, I had a wonderful time shopping in a bunch of different places that specialized in music and movies and came back with just a ton of stuff. Just now, I'm going to be catching you all up with what I've accumulated over the last almost month, actually a little over a month now. I remember it's August 25th now, and in that time, of course, not only have I turned 40 years old, but I have also now surpassed 2 years with Las Vegas Metro. I'm happy to have been a Les now for 2 years and still going strong and enjoying every minute of it. And let's get down to it right now. What I've accumulated in the world of movies, and I'm going to kind of add a little separate part a little bit later with the music because it's kind of scattered everywhere here. I've kind of got different places I'm going to be displaying this stuff, so I hope you enjoy it. I've got some water to sip sporadically here just to make sure that I have a clear throat. So, one of the things that I did while on vacation was I went to this really cool music and book and video store called Book Off. And at this place, I actually managed to get a free tote bag with all the purchases I made. So I wanted to start by showing what I got there. It was a lot of Blu-rays and DVDs, most of which I still have in the shrink wrap because that's how I got them. These were all actually used movies that I picked up there. So a lot of these I've been kind of on the hunt for a while, and some were just a total surprise that they had them. So let's check these out. So I've got a bunch of stuff here from Shout Factory and Scream Factory along with Kino Lorber. First off, this film Bedtime Story from 1964 with Marlon Brando and David Niven. When Kelly and I actually, I think just around when we had, actually it was before we left for this trip, we watched the movie Dirty Rotten Scoundrels with Michael Caine and Steve Martin and Glenn Headley, and I did not realize that the film was actually inspired by an earlier film, a comedy that was made in the 60s. This film, Bedtime Story, it's the same premise where two guys are just trying to con rich women out of their money. And this is still in its shrink wrap from Kino Lorber. I have not opened it yet, but definitely looking forward to checking that one out. Next collection of stuff here. I'm going to kind of get this a little bit organized here. I found the Dentist collection from Vestron. They had released the Dentist and the Dentist 2 with Corbin Burnson, and I remember watching this film, both of them, back in the late 90s on HBO. I remember this was one of those like horror films that I could not get enough of, just the way it was executed and filmed. Both films have been directed by Brian Usna, and he really did a bang-up job with these films. I mean, this is very unexpected for, this kind of genre, but, a lot of people have this irrational fear about dentists, so why not? And it got a sequel. It actually got a sequel, The Dentist 2, which had I'll never forget the subtitle, Brace Yourself, orthodontist humor. But this collection was released a little earlier, I believe, this year, 2023. And there's a whole slew of bonus features with both films, including a brand new interview with Corbin Burnson, who plays the lead role in this, Dr. Alan Feinstone. So very much looking forward to watching that. This was a Shout Factory, or rather Scream Factory Blu-ray I picked up, The Burning. This is a film that I had seen the trailer for in a lot of Blu-ray movies of trailers that I had purchased over the last couple years, and It actually has some very young up and comers in it, including Brian Backer, who had been in Fast Times at Ridgemont High, Fisher Stevens, who was in the Short Circuit films, and a very young Holly Hunter and Jason Alexander. So I'm very much looking forward to this. I know recently, or about to come up in release, is the 4K edition of this, but I wanted to just get the Blu-ray. This is actually a Blu-ray DVD combo that had been released by Shout Factory a couple years ago. Actually 10 years ago now. I'm looking on the back here, 2013 this came out. But again, the trailer really made this a cool looking film, and this had come out just about the time that Friday the 13th had come out, along with its sequel. This came out in 1981, and Friday the 13th Part 2, I believe, had just come out or was about to come out at the same time. So this all takes place at a summer camp, and it's supposedly a very, very good cult horror movie that I'm definitely looking forward to watching. This one I got, actually, he's getting a spoiler now if he watches it. This is actually for a friend of mine, my buddy Jeff. Confessions of a Dangerous Mind on Blu-ray, the Chuck Barris film that starred Sam Rockwell and George Clooney and Drew Barrymore and Julia Roberts. This film, very, very underrated film. Not a whole lot of people remember this film. It came out around, I think, late 2002, just after award season. It might have even come out that summer. I'm not 100% sure, because I know for myself 2002 was a busy year because I was graduating high school, about to start college. So this film is actually pretty good. I have seen it a few times, and my buddy Jeff and I had talked about it a couple times when we would hang out, and he had said he never was able to find it on Blu-ray, and I managed to, find out that it does exist on Blu-ray, but Book Off just happened to have a copy of it, so I grabbed it for him. So Jeff, you'll be getting this soon. Hope you enjoy that. This one I just recently revisited, The Hurricane, with Denzel Washington from the late 90s, with a direction by Norman Jewison, who did In the Heat of the Night. This is a very, very brilliantly made film based on the true story of Reuben the Hurricane Carter, who, if you know the Bob Dylan song The Hurricane, was a boxer whose career was cut short due to being arrested for a crime that he did not commit. And the film is just so beautiful. I am amazed that more people, don't know about this. But truth be told, I only found out about this when I was working in the tourism industry through a coworker who told me, if you really like that song, The Hurricane by Bob Dylan, you need to see the film if you've never seen it. So I managed to track down this film through my library, and just again, before we took our trip to Chula Vista, I had gotten it again out of the library. I wanted to revisit it, thinking, it'd be really cool if I can find this on Blu-ray. It's, really in need of a good remastering, and they had 2 copies of this, so I managed to grab one, and I'm, definitely looking forward to rewatching it again in high def. So, The Hurricane, Denzel Washington, really good film, that one. This is one, for the first time, I had posted recently about having this kind of marathon of 2 Jewish films. One was The Jazz Singer with the Neil Diamond, and the other one was Yentl with Barbara Streisand. I have never seen Yentl. I knew a lot about it growing up. I think my mom was a fan of this film. Kelly, my wife, is a very big fan of this film, and she wanted to watch it together with me for the first time. So right after we got back from our trip, we watched both Yentl followed by The Jazz Singer. Loved both films. I have to say, this is a very, very beautiful film. I highly recommend it, and I am not that big on Barbara Streisand, as a musician, but as an actress, I have to say, she really shines. Barbara shines, and this is probably her finest work. Now, I have to admit, I have not seen Prince of Tides. I have not seen, I think it's called, what was it? Yeah, A Star is Born, the 70s version of A Star is Born that she did with Chris Christopherson. But out of the films of Barbara Streisand's I have seen, What's Up, Doc? Recently, I actually watched The Guilt Trip with Seth Rogen that she did, and that was actually a very nice film, too, I have to say. Very sweet movie. Yentl, definitely, I would have to say, one of Barbara Streisand's finest pieces of cinematic work. This film actually contains both her director's cut and the theatrical cut, so you got 2 for 1 here on this one, and As far as I understand it, they have not reissued this on Blu-ray. I think it is only available on DVD, so I was very happy to grab this one. This is an interesting one. I am a fan of John Waters, and this was a film that he had done, I think, in late 2004 or 5, and it's a dirty shame. And it is known as the uncut NC-17 theatrical version. And I had been searching for the uncut version of this for a long time. Now, truth be told, I've never seen the what was known as the neuter version, the watered down, censored cut, tons of times available in stores, but not the uncut NC-17 theatrical version. So at some point, I'm looking very forward to watching this. I was very happy that they had this in stock at Book Off. This one's a concert movie I've never seen. U2, Rattle and Hum. Now, one of the main reasons I wanted to get this was because of who directed it. This is directed by Phil Joannou. Phil Joannou is the same man who directed one of my personal favorite underrated 1980s comedies, 3 O'Clock High, with Casey Jamasco and Richard Tyson, the film about a high school kid who ends up being faced off with a bully at the end of the day at 3 o'clock in the afternoon when school lets out. But Phil has had a really good career in directing music videos, and when he was approached by U2 to direct this, he immediately jumped at the opportunity. This is the concert film that U2 had made while touring their Joshua Tree album, and I am very much looking forward to this. I'm not a huge fan of U2, but I love the Joshua Tree album. I mean, who doesn't? Really, there are so many great songs off that album. Where the Streets Have No Name, Still Haven't Found What I'm Looking For, With or Without You, the list goes on. But this film is out of print, and I know it got a Blu-ray release, but that too is very hard to come by. So this, when I found it, $5 at Book Off. You cannot beat that for an out of print concert film by U2, directed by the director of 3 O'Clock High, Phil Joannou, and I'm very much looking forward to watching that. This is one that was actually a TV series. It's one of Marty Feldman's first shows that he did. It's actually the show that predated Monty Python's Flying Circus, one of 2 shows, the other one being Do Not Adjust Your Set, but this one was called At Last, the 1948 Show, and it's a black and white film show that was basically started in the late 60s, about 1967. This show was the show that premiered the original Yorkshiremen sketch, the 4 Men from Yorkshire, I believe it was called. The 4 Yorkshiremen. This is the show that started that sketch that Monty Python pretty much claimed as their own for years forward. But Marty Feldman is on this show along with Graham Chapman, Tim Brooke Taylor, and John Cleese. I've seen a couple sketches from this on YouTube from time to time, but I wanted to own an actual copy of it. And again, they had it there, Book Off, $5. Again, you cannot beat the prices that were at this store. Finally, they had a motorcycle movie that I had grown up with watching on HBO in the 80s, Winners Take All. This was a film that got a lot of play on HBO during the late 80s, I remember. At that time, I was such a big fan of motorcycles and cars, and watching any kind of movie or TV show that had to do a lot with that, I was always just eyes glued to the set. And this film just really did a great job in motocross stunts and display. I mean, I think they were actually utilizing actual footage of real professional motocross racers within the film itself. And, it was all done live, no stunt riders on this. This was done with, real motocross racers. And I enjoyed it, and it's another out-of-print title that I was happy to find at Book Off. So moving on now, a few recent things I accumulated through a combination of both sales at various places and eBay. One of the people that I follow on eBay is a man who operates a store called the Valhalla Group. This guy is always sending me coupons for buying movies from him at discount prices. He'll have a lot of stuff like buy 2, get 1 free, buy 4, get 1 free. Recently, I took him up on his offer of buy 4, get 1 free. And in doing so, he has a lot of stuff that was produced overseas. He had a collection of Blu-rays of trailer collections from an Australian company, Umbrella Entertainment, that released a series called Drive-In Delirium. Now, I have actually one of these already. That's a complete collection of trailers from the 1980s. These are a continuation of those, and the collection includes stuff of, trailers of comedy movies, action thrillers, horror movies, westerns, ninja, samurai, Japanese fare. It's incredible. So each one has a different title. Not only do they contain two whole parts of roughly 3 hours apiece, they have VHS transfers of movie trailers that are unrestored. So it's like you're watching them on an old, 1.33 by 1 full frame setup on an old TV. But I've got Drive-In Delirium Dead by Dawn, Drive-In Delirium The New Batch, and Drive-In Delirium The Final Conflict. Also from this guy, I decided recently to upgrade my old Blu-ray of Cloak and Dagger. I watched it and actually traded it in. It was the old Vinegar Syndrome collector's box. I sold that to Zia. Not too big of a loss, but I watched some of the bonuses and I just kind of thought, eh. So I decided to get the new one that Umbrella Entertainment got. That's actually a 3D cover. I feel like I'm doing John Candy in SCTV right now. Ooh, very scary, isn't it? Anyway, that's a 3D cover. I haven't opened the 3D glasses that came with this. I kind of want to keep them preserved, but a lot of new bonus features that were put on this one. Again, Umbrella Entertainment put this one out, and I have to say, I think it's a superior presentation over the Vinegar Syndrome version. Even though that one was housed to look like an Atari cartridge, this one still does a bang-up job in the bonus feature department. I'm going to take a quick water break here. So the next thing I got from the Valhalla group, this was one of the freebie ones. There was a documentary made about one of my favorite Manchester bands, the Stone Roses, in 14 or 13, documenting their whole reunion get-together and their tour called Made of Stone. And I have the DVD of this. This is a UK Region 2 or Region B Steelbook edition of that documentary that has bonus features of over 2 hours, and the presentation on this is just amazing. It is basically one DVD and two Blu-rays, very well put together. I just rewatched it the other day, and in terms of picture and sound quality with the HD presentation on Blu-ray, it is just beautiful. I am so glad to have a new copy of this on Blu-ray. It is really, really amazing. Very, very special item that I'm so proud to own. Thank you, Valhalla Group, for this one on eBay. Check them out if you get a chance on eBay. The Valhalla Group. You will not be disappointed. Next thing I managed to get through eBay recently, the Twilight Time edition of the Blu-ray of Woody Allen's Radio Days. This is my favorite Woody Allen movie. It is #1, followed by Broadway Danny Rose, and it just brings me back to when I was in college doing radio, and I remember watching this film while I was a radio DJ in college, and just being completely taken back to the golden age of listening to radio serials, radio dramas that were played out with Masked Avengers, and just people having breakfast together in the morning, a recorded broadcast of just a husband and wife eating breakfast together. But these were all based on things Woody Allen experienced in his childhood in New York City, in Brooklyn, or rather in Brooklyn, in New York during the 1940s. And this is an out-of-print film. Twilight Time has not reissued this. There isn't a single distributor that I have found online that has additional copies of this. This is a copy that only had 3,000 pressed, and every single one of them is gone now. So the only way to get them pretty much are through people who decide to sell them online, and they are not cheap. I managed to, I believe, get this one. I got very lucky. I think I only got it for about $45 on eBay. Anywhere else, I would probably be spending about $75 or even $100. So very happy to now have this in great condition with the booklet included, as you can see there. Very happy to have this now as part of my collection. Another one I got from eBay, I upgraded my old DVD of this, the Richard Curtis film, The Boat That Rocked, also known as Pirate Radio in the United States. I loved this film when it came out, from its trailer debuts to its eventual theatrical showing here in Las Vegas back in 2009. It was not an easy film to watch because it wasn't playing very many places. It played maybe one or two theaters here tops. But again, much like Radio Days and, my experiences in being a DJ, I love movies that have to deal with, radio, especially radio taking place in one of my favorite eras, the 1960s. And this is a wonderful film. If you haven't seen it, it does exist in the Americanized version, Pirate Radio, which you can watch, I'm sure, on streaming in various places. I know the Blu-ray, which I have in my collection, as you can see behind me, is available, but the original UK version is much longer. It's got a lot more depth to the story, and it's very well made. Unfortunately, critics trashed it for being too long. They thought it really didn't have much enjoyment as, say, Love Actually or Notting Hill. But you know what? Richard Curtis, you still make incredible films, and I love The Boat That Rocked. Another one that was a recent eBay acquisition, Schlock. This is John Landis's very first feature film that he did, the man who gave us National Lampoon's Animal House, An American Werewolf in London, and the Blues Brothers. Made this interesting homage to the classic monster films of the 1950s and 60s, and it's not good. It's horrible, but it's laughable, and it's a film that I just felt I have to have in my collection. Arrow Video put this out a couple years back. There was actually a release from Anchor Bay on DVD back in, I want to say, 2001 or 2, when they were acquiring a bunch of films that had been kind of played and quickly went out of print with theaters and maybe sometimes got shown on television. I know they also released the first version of Kentucky Fried Movie on DVD. Subsequently, Shout Factory accumulated the rights to that and put that one out. That's the one John Landis worked on. But Schlock, it's got its fans, and it was also one of the first films that makeup artist Rick Baker, who did the work on American Werewolf in London, as well as the Michael Jackson Thriller video, worked on. So there's some notoriety for this film for that as well. But the other thing about this is that Eliza Garrett, who went on to play the character of Brunella at the desk in National Lampoon's Animal House, and subsequently went on to become Eliza Roberts. She is the wife of actor Eric Roberts, which we'll talk about in a minute. She is the female lead in this film, so I might be taking this to the next Hollywood show, which she and Eric Roberts are appearing at. Might get her autograph on this one. We'll see. This is another one I had managed to finally track down on Blu-ray, Spinning Gold, the movie about Casablanca Records. And this is the true story of the creator of that record company, Neil Bogart, all based on the history of that company that gave us, the real breakout hits from bands like Kiss, Donna Summer. It gave us the Isley Brothers resurgence, Gladys Knight and the Pips resurgence. It was not well loved by critics, nor did it get much of a push or a show in theaters at all, which is a shame. It's a very beautiful film. I cried while watching it, and I thought it was incredibly, presented by the way that they had the music done. Yes, it's mainly all covers, and a lot of people who've seen it say that, the people playing these roles look nothing like the actual people themselves. I don't care. I'm just going to say it. I don't care. This is a great film. I definitely think anyone who's interested in that era of, late disco, late classic rock should check it out. Really good R&B and soul as well is in this film. Parliament Funkadelic is presented in this film. And the cast did a great job with what they were given. I really think that more people need to see this. Give it a chance. I'm sure it's at tons of streaming places. Redbox, my library had the DVD, which is how I first watched it, and then I tracked down the Blu-ray on eBay. So I'm proud to have that in my collection. Another one I got from eBay, the Sparks Brothers documentary. This film, actually, I had seen with Kelly, I believe, on Netflix about a year ago, and throughout the last year and a half, I've just been on a huge Sparks journey. I listened to every single one of their albums. There's a couple that I just became a huge, huge fan of and bought on vinyl. Managed to track some of those down while on our vacation. But the Blu-ray version of this actually includes a live in London 22-song concert that they did. I believe that was back in either 2019 or 2018. But this is a very, very good documentary, and like myself, chances are if you watch this, you will become an instant fan of Sparks like that. It's a great documentary. Anyone who's a fan of, great, indie music, or, kind of avant-garde music, you'll want to check this film out. I highly recommend the Sparks Brothers. Then 2 DVDs I picked up recently on eBay. This one I actually had a copy of, but not the physical copy. Gene Wilder's 1977 film, The World's Greatest Lover. This is one of those, probably the funniest Gene Wilder film you've never heard of. When you think about Gene Wilder in the 70s, you're probably going to think Willy Wonka and the Chocolate Factory, Blazing Saddles, Young Frankenstein, Silver Streak. Few people know about The World's Greatest Lover, but anyone who knows Mel Brooks movies, especially the ones with Gene Wilder, you're going to see some familiar faces in this. This has got Dom DeLuise. This has got music by John Morris. This has got Richard Dimitri, who went on to be Roman Moroni in the film Johnny Dangerously, produced by some of the people who worked on Young Frankenstein and Blazing Saddles. This also has Carol Kane, who puts on a great performance as Gene Wilder's wife in this film. And Gene not only wrote this film, he directed it, and on the DVD for this, he does an audio commentary, which I recently rewatched with the commentary, and he's very soft-spoken. He's basically just a man, sitting down, watching his film again for the first time in a long while. But he's happy. He's enjoying it. He is laughing. He's commenting, oh, that was so silly. Oh, what a schmuck. Oh, now he's in trouble. But it's wonderful to hear these thoughts from a man who gave us so much in the world of comedy. I recommend tracking this one down. It is not easy to come by. It's definitely out of print, but I found a unopened copy on eBay. So it was brand new from, this came out in 2005, the DVD, and definitely worth it. It's a fun little comedy down a time in which films were being made with, Rudolph Valentino and movies that took place in the Sahara Desert. Gene Wilder, The World's Greatest Lover. You won't regret this. You will laugh watching this. And then finally, Star 80, the film involving the life and eventual unfortunate murder of Dorothy Stratton. In this film, played by Mariel Hemingway, and her boyfriend in the film, played by Eric Roberts. I had come to introduce myself to this after watching Peter Bogdanovich's film, They All Laughed, which I actually recently ordered through eBay. That's another one that'll be coming soon in the mail to me. Peter Bogdanovich, of course, had an affair with Dorothy Stratton, and it's definitely a tragic love story. If you know anything about this, Dorothy Stratton's murder by her husband, Paul Snyder, her boyfriend. I don't know if they were officially married or not. It's hard to say, but this film basically was the first theatrical film to showcase this, and then or actually, no, it might have been the second, because I know there was another one with Jamie Lee Curtis that came a few years earlier called, I believe, Death of a Centerfold or something like that. But this film was the theatrical one. Death of a Centerfold was actually a telefilm. So this was the feature film that was actually written and directed by, of all people, Bob Fosse. Yeah, Bob Fosse directed Star 80. But it's very, very I don't want to say enjoyable, because for a film that involves a murder, that's kind of odd territory, but it's an interesting and impressive film to watch. I'll say that. I'm going to actually take this with me to the Hollywood show. As I mentioned earlier, both Eric Roberts and Mariel Hemingway are going to be there, so I figure this will be a good one to get them to autograph. So looking forward for that one. Next thing, I had the opportunity of taking advantage over the birthday vacation I took of a big sale that Kino Lorber was having on their website. So I got a couple new ones to add to the collection. This one I recently watched, a pretty good 80s film about racing through Laurel Canyon called King of the Mountain. This film stars Harry Hamlin, Joseph Bottoms, Deborah Van Valkenburg from Streets of Fire and the Warriors, and also Dan Haggerty, Grizzly Adams himself, Seymour Cassell, and Dennis Hopper. This is basically a movie about this guy who just, for fun, does these nightly rides through, or not Laurel Canyon, sorry about that, I'm just reading the description on the back now. Mulholland Drive, sorry about that. They do these basically nightly illegal races through Mulholland Drive to see who will be King of the Mountain. Just, from that art alone, the car driving through Mulholland like that, with the lights shining, that always appeals to me. The 80s had some impressive artwork for their posters and their VHS and Laserdisc covers, and I kind of bought this without even having seen it, but I managed to actually watch it on a streaming service, and I enjoyed it. Many will probably think it's, a piece of trash, but you know what? Some of the stuff in my collection is trash, and I still love it, so there you go. The 4K edition that Kino Lorber put out of 12 Angry Men. I have owned this film several times, but you know what? I wanted to actually purchase the 4K edition. It's one of Henry Fonda's finest films, and such a great cast, directed by the legendary Sidney Lumet. I first came to learn about this film when I was in my third year of college, taking a course on discussion and public speaking. This film really encapsulates so much of what can happen when people just lose track of what the main topic of conversation is and get sidetracked and try to focus on when you realize that a man's life is in your hands to make a final verdict, guilty or not guilty. That's when the drama really comes to the surface. And anyone who's a fan of great movies needs to see this. 12 Angry Men is, I'm going to say it, a masterpiece. It's not only a masterpiece as a film, it is a masterpiece as a play. I have yet to get an opportunity to see it as a play, but there are people I've seen listed over the years in different casts that have played these roles. Richard Thomas, George Wendt. There are just so many people who have stepped into the shoes of these people from this film, and it is brilliantly made. Henry Fonda, helped produce this film. Sidney Lumet directed it. I'm a huge Sidney Lumet fan. Dog Day Afternoon, one of my personal favorites of all time from Sidney Lumet. And you can't do any better, really, than this one right here, 12 Angry Men. Brilliant film. Another one I was very excited about, I have been waiting for this for such a long time, Stephen King's Needful Things they released, because this film, it's another underrated film that is an adaptation of Stephen King's work, but it also contained a over 3-hour long television cut of the film that aired in 2 nights, I believe, back in the early 2000s, late 90s. So this is the first time it's been presented both in its theatrical and its television cut version in the States. About 2 or 3 years ago, they got a release with the television cut in Germany. Why Germany? I have no idea. But this is the premier United States version that contains the TV cut, so I'm very excited to watch this. Another Gene Wilder comedy that's very underrated but still hilarious, Haunted Honeymoon from 1986. Another one that Gene himself wrote and directed. He actually co-wrote this with Terrence Marsh. And this is a great film that he made with Gilda Radner and Dom DeLuise. And they dub it on the subtitle there, a comedy chiller. I watched this finally about a year ago with Kelly, and we laughed. We thought it was hysterical. I remember trying to watch this once before, and I couldn't get through it. But now, I'm happy to have it as part of my collection. Another one I'd say, if you haven't seen it, like if you haven't seen The World's Greatest Lover, you haven't seen Haunted Honeymoon, track it down, give it a watch. Nice little comedy matinee for you there. And finally, from the Kindle Lorber sale, Running Scared. This is one I came to appreciate earlier this year with Billy Crystal and Gregory Hines, directed by Peter Hyams, who also did Capricorn 1, one of my personal favorites in the space movie genre, if you want to call it a genre. I just throw it out there to make this video keep going. Running Scared. This is a very cool cop comedy with Billy Crystal and Gregory Hines. Came out in 1986. I think it's not only known just for, that kind of a pairing between Billy Crystal and Gregory Hines, because at the time, Billy Crystal, I think, excuse me, had really gotten his shoes wet in the comedy world by way of his appearances on Saturday Night Live, and he was starting to do more work, I think, with Christopher Guest as well. But this film works with the two of them, Gregory Hines and Billy Crystal, and the soundtrack is also great in this film. Really enjoyed the music, especially the song Sweet Freedom by Michael McDonald of the Doobie Brothers performs that song, and it's very catchy. I have it on repeat, actually. I have the whole soundtrack saved on my Spotify, so that's another great little 80s comedy. If you haven't seen it before, highly recommend it. Peter Hyams, Running Scared with Billy Crystal and Gregory Hines. Finally, in terms of movies, there was a big sale recently at the Centennial Hills Library here in Las Vegas that I took part of, and I came out of there with a lot of used movies, some of which are brand spanking new, and I just want to show these off here. We've never owned it in our collection. I thought we did, but apparently not. I managed to find a Blu-ray of There Will Be Blood with Daniel Day-Lewis, Paul Thomas Anderson's 2007 drama about oil, about brothers, about milkshakes. You know what I'm talking about. Anyway, we had never owned this film apparently, and I thought, what better chance now, because all of these films, believe it or not, were about $2 a piece. So I grabbed the Blu-ray of There Will Be Blood. The next thing I was surprised to find they had was the 30th anniversary Blu-ray of Steven Spielberg's Close Encounters of the Third Kind. Now, what's funny about this was actually how I first saw this film displayed on the cart. Just the cover, empty, and I thought, well, the film itself has to be around here somewhere. So a simple look on the other side, and voila, I come to find the actual movie itself. The only thing missing from this was a booklet that came with it originally, but you know what? For $2, I'm not going to complain too much because I've never owned this at all. It's a Steven Spielberg classic that I needed to own. And yes, there's been a 4K version now for the 40th anniversary, I believe. But you know what? I'm just happy to have found a copy of it. This has, I believe, 3 different versions of the film. Yeah, it's got the theatrical version, the special edition, and the director's cut version. So I'm just proud to finally have Close Encounters of the Third Kind on a home video format. Next one was another one that I got for Kelly, one of her favorite comedies with Jim Carrey and Téa Leoni, Fun with Dick and Jane. There was a random quote from this film that Kelly would say to me from time to time, just looking at me and going, "We're in a pickle, Dick. We're in a pickle, Dick." I didn't know what she was referring to until she told me, "You've never seen Fun with Dick and Jane?" So we finally watched it together, and when I saw they had a copy of the DVD, I thought, well, might as well grab it again. $2, you cannot beat that. So that's one I'm happy to now add to the collection, Fun with Dick and Jane. The last collection of movies I have here, again, I was very surprised with these. These are all sealed. I want to just preface by saying that. Recently, Kelly and I had mentioned a little discussion about the show Mad Men. I had been talking about how, it was really Mad Men that kicked off this whole new wave of cable networks doing original programming. And in the summer of, the spring, I believe, of 2008, when Mad Men began, that really just got the ball rolling for more and more original series to come out from networks like HBO and Showtime and Bravo, and just the list goes on. But I managed to find Mad Men Season 1, Season 2, Season 3, Season 4, and Season 5, all still shrink-wrapped on DVD, unopened. And I was telling her, it's high time I went back and actually watched this again, because I never finished the show. I think I may have only watched up to the 3rd episode of the very first season, and then I stopped because around that time I was beginning to move into my very first apartment. So I just didn't have the time anymore, and I wasn't excuse me, water break. I wasn't paying for cable when I moved into my first apartment. I was just using my internet, and I didn't have a hookup for my television other than to watch movies and play my PlayStation on. But I just saw these on the cart, and I thought, you know what? This is basically all I need to get the ball rolling again with me jumping back in and watching Mad Men from the start. I am just such a big proponent and pusher for physical media. There's a lot in this world that everyone's going to say, well, why buy it when you can pay to watch it online? And I'm not going to get too much into this regarding the strike that's still going on right now, but just to know that I've, contributed to, making purchases to the preservation and the legacy of the work that has been done by these directors and writers, producers, actors, actresses. They need their work to be watched and, seen and heard. And I'm always going to have physical media in my life. As you can see behind me, it's such a huge part of my life. I mean, I call this room Phil's Movie Manor for a reason, because the bulk of it just consists of nothing but movies, from laser discs to DVDs and Blu-rays and box sets and movie posters on the walls. That's just how I've always been, how I always will be. So that's just how I'm going to keep on keeping on, watching movies, listening to music, buying actual movies, and buying actual music. So that's really all I can say at this point. So there'll be a follow-up video to this in a little while, maybe a few hours, maybe a few days, depending on how much energy I have. I feel I poured a lot into making this, so I'll be showing off some of the new music I've accumulated over the last month or so, and it's, again, quite a lot. I was very surprised at how much I managed to track down while both on vacation and at a recent vinyl record sale that they had, gathering of collectors at the Sahara West Library here in Las Vegas. So came out with a lot of vinyl over the last month that I'm going to share with you shortly. So once again, I thank you for taking the opportunity to watch me show off the new stuff I've gotten and spend a little time with me in Phil's Movie Manor. So all I can say is stay tuned for the next video. Thanks for watching.